sweep into the questions we have from today. I'm pretty sure some places out there are itching, and of course, everyone of our listeners, they want to know what is it about you? What is this obstetric fistula we've been hearing about? So we'll take it step by step, one after the other. So we'll pick it up from the personal connection and passion. You're very vocal and passionate about maternal and child health. What drives you in this work? Do you perhaps have a personal story or experience that you may be willing to share with our listeners? Something that deepens your connection to these issues and fuels your advocacy.
First, I'm a woman.
Yes.
And
yes, you are.
So even from when I was very young, I lost a younger sister, 3-year-old at the time, due to female genital mutilation. And I watched how broken my 20-something-year-old mother was when that happened. And from then, I didn't even know what public health was. But I swore as a young child, about 8 years old at the time, that I will work with women in communities to see that their lives are better than what I am seeing my mother and others go through.
Wow. Wow. I'm intrigued already. Thank you very much for sharing that personal story. It gives a clear basis to, the enthusiasm behind all of your work, what drives you. Now we want to understand the basics even further. For the benefit of everyone listening, could you explain what an obstetric fistula is in the simplest term possible? What causes it? Who is most at risk? What are the symptoms and what are the different types of obstetric fistulas?
Well, obstetric fistula in local language means a young woman, most times, very young women, in trying to give birth because of prolonged obstructed labor, that is, the baby's head is too big for the space that it needs to pass to come out. And with that prolonged labor, the vaginal canal, which is right next to where urine comes and right next to the rectum where feces comes out. So when there is a burst linking the vaginal canal and the urinary canal, or vaginal canal and the rectal canal, a fistula has formed. So if it is linked with the urinary canal, it is vesico-vaginal fistula, and it's urine that this woman will be leaking continuously, no control. If it is the link between the vaginal canal and the rectal canal, then it becomes vesico-rectal fistula, in which she will be leaking feces. Either of these scenarios is not good for the physical health of the woman, it's not good for the mental health of the woman, and certainly it makes the situation where the woman used to be, makes it worse when they have this. Wow. Like I said, all women may be prone or at risk of having any of these fistulas because of childbirth, obstructed labor, but younger women tend to have it more.
Wow. So, what are the physical, mental, social health challenges that women with obstetric fistula typically face?
I mean, imagine a young, beautiful girl cannot control urine anymore. So it's constantly wet and smelly. And of course, in our communities where we come from, everything has witchcraft attached to it. The next thing is she's being accused of being a witch and sent out of the house, sent to sit on the corner of the building. That actually happened here in Calabar when we were carrying out a community research, and one of our data collectors saw a young girl sitting by the corner of the compound crying. And every now and then they will just be insulting her, calling her a witch and all that. When she went closer to her, she could smell the urine, she could see flies around her. And because the data collector was a nurse, she suspected and had to take permission from the caregivers to take this girl to the hospital for proper diagnosis. And yes, it turned out she had vesicovaginal fistula. And thankfully, she was well-to-do and was able to take care of this young girl in the hospital, and it was repaired. So the good thing about vesicovaginal fistula or any obstetric fistula is that it is repairable.
Wow. That's such a relief, the fact that it is repairable.
It
Because
is.
what I've just heard is, oh my God. So now I think I'd like to delve into the social and cultural drivers. Obstetric fistula is often called a disease of poverty and silence, a neglected public health and human rights issue. So in your view, how does poverty, cultural practices, and gender inequality contribute to the ongoing prevalence of this condition?
Well, we have, like I told you earlier, female genital mutilation.
Yes.
The female reproductive organ is made in such a way that it can handle the birth of a child. So there are no scar tissue there. So we introduce scars in there when we cut the girl child, whatever type of FGM it is, whether it's just the removal of the clitoris or the labia minora and majora. We introduce scar tissue where scar tissue is not supposed to be. Scar tissue is not elastic. And when a child is coming, that the area needs to be elastic enough to allow the baby to be born. But scar tissue cannot expand, so it tears. And that increases the risk of having a fistula when you have scar tissue in the reproductive organ of a woman. Now, that's a cultural practice. The worst type of FGM happens in the north. We call it infibulation, where a lot of the clitoris, the labia minora and majora are cut and then sewn together, and they will leave a little hole for urine and menstrual flow. That makes it even worse. And because of that, majority of the fistulas that happen in northern Nigeria and across the nation where people who practice that type of FGM is almost 13% of them is because of that. Child marriages are a problem. Remember, I said all women are at risk, but younger women are more at risk. Child marriages, and I want to throw in here that, when we say child marriages, we from where I come from it will be like, oh no, we don't practice child marriages. No, we don't practice child marriages. But the thing about child marriages that puts young children at risk is because they are engaged in sexual activity and they get pregnant and they have children when they are not old enough. So long as those things are happening in our communities, we may not have child marriages, but the children are engaged in sexual activity. The children are engaged in getting pregnant because that's what happens.
Yes.
And then when you get pregnant, you have to have the baby, and your pelvis is this small. And your internal organs are still growing. They are not matured enough to handle a child passing through that canal. So 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds engaging in sexual activity and getting pregnant and having babies puts them at a greater risk of these obstetric fistulas. Poverty. I have heard a mother tell a 13-year-old girl, You are asking me for cream. What your mates are doing to get their own cream, can't you go and do? I have heard a mother say that. Now, will a mother who can afford to take care of her child be able to send the child into prostitution, so to speak? Because basically what she's saying is, go get yourself a man and get gifts. So when you exchange sex for gifts, what's that? Prostitution. So a mother sends the child out to go and do that. I mean, poverty is the witchcraft that is killing our young girls. Our communities, we have the tendency over time to blame the victim. So this young child will, for one reason or the other, whether she got married or she was raped or she engaged in sexual activity because she needed a few things here and there, or she just, engaged in sexual activity for engaging sake and gets pregnant and has a baby and then gets obstetric fistula happen to her. We turn around and call her names instead of looking for solution, instead of finding out how we can help this young girl. And because she is leaking urine and or feces, even begging on the street, people tend to tell, go away, go away. I've seen that happen. In 1995, when I was serving my youth service in Kano, I saw a group of young girls going about begging to survive with tiny little babies, and they were stinking and smelling. And I asked, why are there so many? That was when I found out that Doctors Without Borders usually brings, some gynecologists to come and help, repair the fistula. So that's why they were gathered in a place. But they were looking for food to eat. They were going to beg, and people would tell them, go away, you stink. So that, is an experience that up till today, I'm a girl mother. So I tell all my girls, look, any human being that tells you, any man that says he wants to sleep with you and you are not up to 22 years old, that person does not love you, that person does not like you, that person knows that you are too young to handle sexual relationships, too young physically, too young mentally to handle that.
Wow. Take it from a mother. Too young is too young. Now, we know that early marriage and teenage pregnancy are major risk factors. What basic steps and what specific steps should be taken to protect adolescent girls, especially in the rural areas, like you mentioned, from becoming victims of obstetric fistula?
The truth about it is abstinence.
Abstinence.
Abstinence is the one and only way that you are 100% sure that you will not get pregnant when you are too young to have a baby. However, it is easy to say abstinence, but it's not easy to practice it, especially for those who have already started engaging in sexual activity. Research has already shown that when you talk to a group of young girls who haven't engaged in sexual activity and you preach abstinence to them, more than 50% of them will remain abstinent for a longer time than when you give the same information to young girls who have already started engaging in sexual activity. The percentage is less than 10% that will now deliberately stop and abstain for a longer time. So it's an iffy situation, and that's where the culture comes in. When you go to the village and you see your mates with children, your mates are now married, married or living with their boyfriends and having children, and you want to belong. So a lot of teenagers get into this. When we talk about peer pressure, it's not only about smoking and other things. It also involves young girls getting involved in sexual activity when they shouldn't. So all we need to do is to first engage community in a very organic way. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we raise our children. Let's talk about the values that we want to give our children. Okay? So, like I say, in my house, I tell the children this: a master's degree, a job, a husband, and children, in that order. Now, have some of them mixed the order up? Of course they have, and they've seen the repercussions of that. I don't want you to suffer. I don't want you to engage in something that will put you at risk for things that you shouldn't be engaged in. So by the time a young woman has a master's degree, no matter how early they came into the university, they will be above 22.
Yes.
With a master's degree.
Yes, ma'am.
From that time on, you are beginning to get matured enough to think about marriage, to think about children. Physically, you are getting matured enough. From 22 onwards to about 35, that should be the window for childbearing for most women. But we have to engage community and change the way we look at things. This world is very different from the world of our grandmothers, where 14, 15 is a marriageable age. The world has changed, and we can use education and skill building trainings to delay these marriages.
Yes.
So that young girls will have something to do. They will be able to take care of themselves. Many of those girls with the obstetric fistula that I saw when I was doing my youth service, they were abandoned by their husbands. They were fully married girls, 15, 16-year-old with 2 little children and a debilitating problem in their hands. They were abandoned. Some of them, when they carry them to go and abandon them to their parents send them away. So family structure is beginning to erode the cultural practice of telling your child whenever it is bad out there, you can always run home. But when a child comes home with obstetric fistula and we say, go away, you are now a witch. We need to have our homes to be a haven for children.
Okay, Ma. So you were hitting on, you're giving us very basic points on how to manage the entire situation. Speaking about abstinence, it being the best way to prevent the issue on ground. I am learning a lot sitting right beside you. It is an honor, I must say. And I'm sure Malabite and Malabres is listening. And of course, every single one of our listeners out there are learning a lot. If you know that you're picking up a lot from this session today, then you need to share. You need to, call that woman in your life, that sister of yours, that girl, that lady, let her know, spread the word. It is an actual issue that needs to be brought to light. So let's just continue. Is obstetric fistula treatable? I think that's the next question here. And are there specialized centers in the southern region where women can access the necessary treatment and support?
Yes, obstetric fistula is treatable. They call it repair. So they repair the fistula, and yes, there are centers that the government has established. Here in Calabar, there is one at the General Hospital, right here on Mary Slessor.
Oh, wow.
Yes. There used to be only one in the state before, that was in Ogoja, at the Monai Hospital. But now we have one here in General Hospital. Are there enough? I don't think so. Remember, Nigeria, we have a very large population.
Yes.
And so we would want to push that the government should establish those centers in every single general hospital there is in the nation. Because let's not just be looking at it that, oh, it happens more in the north, so we should have it there.
Yes.
It's nothing as living here. So cultural practice
they have
they have there, they are practicing it here. So so the fistula is happening to young girls living in our communities. We also have it. So let's push for the government to establish these centers all over the nation, many more of them because of our population.
Many more of them because of our population. However, we know that there are, challenges that women may face when seeking for help, treatment for obstetric fistula. What are some of these challenges? How can health systems be improved to address these barriers?
Remember that medical care in Nigeria is mostly out of pocket. So that's where poverty comes in. All right. So, but there are programs that the government has engaged in that are helping. The introduction of the National Health Insurance Scheme has helped a lot of families now, where you go for medical care and it is subsidized, so to speak, because of the insurance. So, but then how many people have registered for this? Especially those in the informal sector. And remember, the people in the informal sector, what I mean by that is people who are not in a government job.
Yes.
They are self-employed, they are selling one thing or the other, they are farmers, how to get them to enroll into the health insurance scheme is a major challenge, and they are more than those who are actually holding a government job right now. Even amongst those that are holding a government job, registration is still an issue. Like I said earlier, there are centers that repair these fistulas. However, they are not as many. They are few and scattered all over the nation. And I'm glad that myself from the flyer that Dr. Ayi will be here to talk about those centers, because he's actually the MD in charge of this one here in General Hospital.
Yes.
There is actually a national blueprint for addressing obstetric fistulas. So by the Federal Ministry of Health, and they have proposed a lot of different ways in which we, the community members, can engage in talking about obstetric fistula. My take on that is we are too used to talking about things as individual issues when they are interconnected.
Okay.
So if we are talking about child marriages, we shouldn't just be looking at, it's a child rights issue. We should bring the information about obstetric fistula in there. That is one of the main outcomes of that. When we are talking about FGM, we should link it with the obstetric fistula, with the child marriages. When we're talking about young girls going to school and all getting trained for one skill or the other, so that they can be self-sufficient and taking care of themselves and their families and communities, we should throw all of this information in there. Because they are all interconnected. They are. For instance, in my culture, FGM is supposedly done to basically honor the girl child. The coming of age, coming out during your wedding, you are looking very nice and pretty. But must we cut? Must we harm in order to honor? Why don't we just say, oh, my daughter just got a degree. Hey, I'm going to put you in that fattening room and spruce you up and call your friends and get a DJ and we're going to dance around the community. We need to celebrate when a young girl finished training in fashion designing, in video making, in whatever skill there. We need to celebrate that girl without the cut.
Yes, without a cut.
Without the cut. Okay, these are things that we need to be talking about and having them interconnected. We should not be looking at, yes, it's good to have a day like this so that we are focused on talking specifically about obstetric fistula. But while we are talking about it, we throw in the issue of poverty and how poverty is driving a lot of other issues, including the obstetric fistula that we're talking about today.
Wow. Many women with obstetric fistula are ostracized rather, by their families and communities. This refers to stigma and, community attitudes towards the issue. So, what are some of the common myths, stigmas surrounding this condition, and how can we begin to shift public attitudes to be more supportive and informed?
First, we need to let everybody know that this condition is curable. Because a lot of times in the past, they didn't know that it is. And so it's a lifelong situation. And, imagine a young girl below 18 having obstetric fistula, and you are expected to live the rest of your life with that. Okay, so when we inform the community that this thing is curable, there are places you can take your child to. Even when there were no centers, if you take the child to the hospital, the gynecologist can take care of that. Okay, we have to show empathy.
Empathy.
Yes, we have to show empathy. Let's build a wall of support around somebody who has a problem and not tear the person down. So we need to be talking about this more and more. And let's get away from the idea that, it's witchcraft. Because when you now say it's witchcraft, we don't know how to deal with that, okay? It's beyond us to now talk about, how do we now break the witchcraft? But when we tell you that obstetric fistula is not witchcraft, it's a physical thing that is happening to this young woman, and there are ways in which it can be fixed. This young woman's psyche is so down, her worth, her self-dignity is hampered by the way they are being treated. We need a support system. Almost like we have the support groups for people living with HIV and AIDS. I think we need people who understand, who have gone through this, whether as caregivers or as they themselves victims of obstetric fistula. We need to form support groups because they understand. They will know what that girl is going through, and they will know what to say to. And then we, the rest of the community, who are very interested in the health of our young girls, the health of our women, and in promoting their health, both mentally and physically, we need to rally around these support groups and make sure that our young girls who are victims should be able to reintegrate into the society without people pointing fingers at them.
Oh. My head is, whoa, I think I need like 5 seconds to take all of this in. But yes, you've heard it, and you've heard it from an expert. Empathy is key, whatever the situation may be, especially for obstetric fistula. Don't be so quick to call that person a witch. Don't be so quick to push the person aside. This is for awareness. This is for sensitization. So it's better you know, and it's better you put a word out there. It's better you do things the right way, approach it from the right angle instead of, ostracizing them, pushing them away. Show empathy and help them find help. We're going to pick it up and continue with this insightful session. But for now, we'll go on a short break. We would like you to stay with us. Welcome back from that very short musical break. I'm sure we didn't lose you or your attention. And remember to share and spread the word today. We're discussing everything that concerns obstetric fistula. And of course, I still have with me a remarkable guest, Dr. Ndep. Thank you very much, Ma, once again for making our time to enlighten us about this issue. So we'll just kickstart and continue from where we stopped. Now I know we've been talking about women, the girl child marriage, how to help, the prevention. Men, these men, what role do they have to play in the prevention and support? Husbands, partners, community leaders. What exactly do they do? What role do they play, either in contributing to or helping to prevent obstetric fistula?
Let's start with our fathers. Little girls adore their fathers. They are their first love. But when a father makes the decision to give away the daughter in marriage, a young daughter in marriage, you are basically signing off that child. They are at greater risk. My father was very straightforward. He's a Malabite. Yeah. He will tell you from the beginning, if you engage in sexual activity, there are just two ways about it. You either get pregnant or you don't. But how are you sure you're not the 50% that will get pregnant? So you make your choice. So from how we raise our girls at home to how we project them into the society, to how we view them when they are married off, and if it's not working, how do we receive them, or do we receive them back? When they are in a marriage and something like obstetric fistula happens to them, the first person that will drop them is the husband. That is what we have found. That's the first person that will drop them. The first thing they will say, people your age have been giving birth now. Why is your own so different? So it's now your fault that you are not like your age mates. But we are all different. Even people from the same womb, the same home, we're different human beings. So how something affects one doesn't necessarily affect all the others the same way. Then, for partners who stand by their wives no matter what, we need to rally behind them, support them as they support their wives through any ailment, but especially when your young wife is going through prolonged labor. There are places still on this earth, in this our Nigeria, where a woman is going through prolonged labor. And medically speaking, they are advised that, we should have take them in for cesarean section. And then the same woman who is going through serious problems will now do, it's not my portion. But these procedures exist so as to help. And then there are cases where they need someone, they need the husband to sign off.
Yes.
And the husband does not agree to sign. So we need to be talking about these things. These are cultural and social issues that put our women at risk. I am not saying that God is not in it. I'm not saying you are a bad Christian or whatever religion you serve. But if it is medically advised that you go for C-section because the labor is becoming, getting to the level of be careful,
Yes.
then let's go for the CS. Yes, a lot of our women end up with a TBA for delivery. That in itself is not a bad thing. But when the TBA does not recognize the limits of her expertise, when prolonged obstructive labor comes on, they need the referral. We need to have emergency obstetric care in place anywhere we live, even at the health center level. We need to have that, but we don't. At 2 a.m. you are in labor. It actually happened to me. 2 a.m. I'm in labor and get to the health center and no one was there. Whoa. So if my mom wasn't a midwife, I would be sitting in an empty health center at 2 a.m. My mom, luckily, is a midwife. And so she delivered me in the health center. So imagine how many women face such. Imagine. So there are so many things that we can do. The men ought to start by being a good father. Brothers, stand by your sisters. Don't see your sister going through one hell of a life, and because you want to have a married sister.
A married sister.
Yeah. So she should manage as best as she can. No. If that child's life is at stake, that woman's life is at stake, brothers, stand up for your sisters.
Yes.
Fathers, stand up for your daughters. Husbands, you said for better, for worse, till death do you part. An obstetric fistula comes, it parts you long before the cock will even crow. So we need these men. We need these men to stand up for their women.
Stand up for your women. Stand up for your women. It's clear, it's a clear message. Whether you are a brother, a father, uncle, husband. I mean, we've been hitting a lot about ladies, women, and the men. You probably sit and cross your arms like, not be our issue. It is everybody's concern. It is everybody's issue. So your role, your part to play, just in case you didn't know, is to stand up. Don't ostracize us. Don't push us aside. Find help for us. Give us this firm foundation from the beginning for fathers. Brothers, stand up for your sisters. Don't put them aside like they should be discarded. Find help for the women in your life. Now, quickly, we'll move to progress and gaps in Nigeria. Looking nationally, what strides has Nigeria made in addressing obstetric fistula, and where are we still falling short? What would you say are the most important pressing gaps we must urgently address?
Well, we have all the laws against FGM, against child marriage, against money marriage. We have all that. We are moving. We didn't used to have them.
Yes.
We are moving. And because of some of these laws, the FGM practice has dropped drastically. And in some communities, it has almost stopped completely. So yes, we are moving in the right direction. However, we still have a lot to do. The federal government, through the Ministry of Health, like I said, has a blueprint on how to address obstetric fistulas. And part of that is to also encourage establish the care centers. which they have, but like I said earlier, there's still not enough. Okay, by right, even at the primary care level, we should have obstetric fistula care center. The fines that were put originally when they brought out the law against FGM, the fines were so little that I think it was 20,000 at some point. And a father would say, I'll cut my child and I'll pay the 20,000. So they raised it up to 200,000. So that cut some people out, but there are still people that can just cough up 200,000 like that. So we said those fines should be a little steeper, because when you now gauge 2 million to bail yourself out when you are caught that you are planning to cut your child or you've cut your child, you will think twice before you do that. We as a community, we need to be more vigilant and be our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. Because it's not enough for us to know that there is a law against this and there is a law against that. But when something is happening and we turn a blind eye, the law will not come and see it and happen to that person. We are the ones that will make sure that law works in our communities. Okay, the same way we are talking about gender-based violence. Do you know there are some cases where pregnant women will be beaten to a stupor, kicked on the belly, and they go into, forced labor and all manner of other things that happen to them. So like I said, one thing leads to another. We need to talk about all these issues that lead women to either have what we call severe maternal outcomes. That is, they either die giving birth or during pregnancy, or they have near misses, that is, they almost died due to pregnancy and childbirth. But our practices, our behaviors towards these women put them at a greater risk. The pregnancy in and of itself is a risky venture. But like I said, I will always quote the Bible. In my Bible, I saw it there that God said, "Go ye into the world and multiply." I do not see anywhere around there that says die in the process. Okay? But we as human beings, we have created situations that put women at risk of dying during pregnancy and childbirth. And obstetric fistula is one of the ways in which a woman's life, quality of life is reduced to minus. What's the lowest number I can call? Minus the thousands.
Yes.
Okay. So a child is having a healthy pregnancy today, goes to give birth and ends up with a fistula, and that's how their quality of life is gone.
It's gone.
Just like that. So we need to be able to address these issues in conjunction with each other.
Yes.
And like we said, let our men, beginning with fathers, with brothers, with uncles, our husbands, our boyfriends, stand up for the women and not be the cause of ill health amongst women, whether physical ill health or mental ill health.
Policy and local implementation. Are there any policies or legal frameworks in Nigeria, and specifically in Calabar or Cross River states, that supports the prevention or treatment of obstetric fistula? Do you believe these are, effective in reaching and protecting the most vulnerable women?
I had said that before. There are. We even have a care center here in Calabar. Okay, so there are, however, like I said,
Yes, ma'am.
they are not enough.
They are not enough.
There are policies now, and I think we have shouted long enough, and they're beginning to hear us, to ensure that our TBAs are trained and retrained.
Yes.
Okay, so we are pushing forward in the right direction. We had brought into international ways of thinking, where they would come here and tell us that, oh, you must have a skilled birth attendant and don't go to a TBA. But TBA is a cultural thing. If they have been in a gap where we cannot afford to go to the hospitals, they've been there in the gap. Where the hospital is very far away, they've been there in the gap. Yes. So all we need, just like other Western nations have done, retrain them in aseptic techniques and retrain them, let them form a network with the hospitals and the healthcare centers around them, so that when there is this prolonged labor, obstructed labor, they know this, they know the signs, they know immediately what to do, to refer immediately, or to call a specialist to come there. Like, that's what I said. We need to establish emergency obstetric care. We don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of that. So we are walking in the right direction, but there's still more that we can do as a nation. Like I said, we can have these care centers in every general hospital, but that's when there is a general hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There are local governments within this state that don't have a general hospital. So even if the government decides that, okay, we're going to put a care center in every general hospital, those local governments will not have one. So we are moving in the right direction, but it's not enough. Our population is huge. And we have one of the largest young populations in the world. So these young people are getting married, they're having babies. Some are not getting married, they're having babies. Okay, so we need to care for them. We need to care for them, but we need to first start prevention by educating our young children from school age. Yes, we need to educate them. Abstinence works. If you are already sexually active, protect yourself so that you won't get pregnant at a young age. That we need to catch them young, so that we prevent the pregnancy from happening in the first place.
I think this is the call to action.
Yes. We have to prevent that pregnancy from happening in the first place. Let us normalize marriage and childbirth to be it from our mid-20s upward. Let's stop rushing our girls into marriage as if that is the be-all, end-all of their existence on earth. We have a lot to offer, but we have to be healthy to offer the lot that God has given us to offer.
You've heard it from an expert, an educator, a mother, someone who is renowned, and of course has filled you today with a lot of insights. Now we've spoken to every single one who is concerned: Malabites, Malabresses, fathers, mothers, young ladies out there, women in their mid-20s, older women, whatever your demographic is and wherever you are. This is a real issue, and we brought it to light. Now you know the steps to take. You know about obstetric fistula, its causes, the types, you know how to address it. You know that there are centers here, even in Calabar, and even to the government. We know that there are centers, but they are not enough. So this is the call to action. Abstinence for the young ladies, vigilance for the fathers and the brothers and the husbands, and for the government. We need more, although we must also commend you because you're pushing, you're doing a lot, starting from all of us right to the top there. We are moving towards the right direction, like our mommy said, but it is not enough. The International Day to End Obstetric Fistula reminds us that while obstetric fistula is a devastating condition, it is entirely preventable and treatable with our education, equity in healthcare, and unwavering advocacy. We can ensure that no woman has to suffer in silence or shame. Today's discussion, we've talked about a lot and we've learned a lot. So let us commit to breaking the silence, ending the stigma, and building health systems that prioritize women's reproductive rights and restore hope. Thank you so much, Dr. Ndep.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, for generously sharing insightful information, your vast knowledge and insights. We're deeply grateful for your unwavering dedication to health education and to the University of Calabar. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And finally, a big thank you to the entire UNICAL Radio International 103.5 FM, to the entire team for making this special edition a success. And of course, to our audience, thank you for tuning in and engaging. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Until next time, remember to keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for excellence. On Facebook, it's UNICAL Radio International. On X, it's UNICAL Rain 1. On Instagram, it's UNICAL Rain. And of course, on the online radio, it's yrka.org/UNICAL Radio. This is UNICAL Radio International, 103.5 FM. My name is Eneja Wisdom Chinecherium. Thank you and goodbye.